Now, you contend that the worst is behind Malaysia. We saw GDP shrink 5.6% for 2020, but the outlook is brightening, prompting the central bank to hold rates. And we're going to get the growth forecast from the central bank by the end of this month. Now, going forward, to sustain the momentum, will the priority be on growth over fiscal discipline?
Thank you. Thank you, Sophie, for having me. Yes, this year, Bank Negara will be announcing the new GDP number for Malaysia. At the moment, we are still sticking to the 6.5 to 7.5% GDP growth for Malaysia compared to negative 5.6 last year. We have to balance between short-term fiscal injection to the economy over the medium-term to long-term fiscal consolidation. The focus of the government today is on economic revival. We would like to jumpstart the economy, and we're showing positive signs of economic recovery in line with the success in the vaccination program that we just started earlier this month.
Now, the government is in the revitalized stage of its 6R plan to restart the economy. The Pemerkasa stimulus package was announced on March 17th. How will that be funded, and how do higher oil prices factor into this revenue outlook? You have the budget assuming crude at $42 a barrel. We now have Brent trading above 62.
The most recent stimulus package, around 20 billion ringgit, 11 billion ringgit of it is all fiscal injection. It will be funded through the borrowings, through domestic borrowings. Of course, as you have stated, the oil price today is much higher than what we have assumed in our budget for 2021. We assume oil price to be around $42 per barrel. Today it's higher. So this will also help our fiscal position. We hope that what we have injected so far, the economy will translate into growth. And we have seen that happen in the last 5 stimulus packages that we announced, which have helped our GDP numbers by 3 to 4% last year. So for this year, we'll be focusing a lot more on sectors that are still affected. And as you know, the tourism and retail sectors are still affected. However, the other sectors have reopened and the economy have restarted for those sectors.
Now, Zafrul, you have been a proponent of protecting livelihoods. This latest stimulus package provides targeted assistance to those hardest hit, be they individuals or businesses. Petrol prices continue to be capped. What other action is being considered to provide this targeted support?
Yeah. Well, if you look at what we've done so far, from the first lockdown to the second lockdown, we have made many changes in terms of our support to the businesses that are affected and also to the vulnerable sectors. So the most recent ones, we have been focusing a lot more on sectors that are still affected. Like I mentioned just now, was tourism and retail. But for the vulnerable sector, what we have also done is we focus on the B40 and those who have lost their jobs. So we have created a National Employment Council chaired by the Prime Minister himself to monitor the progress when it comes to employment. We have also injected a lot of fiscal stimulus to help companies to employ and redeploy people, especially in reskilling and upskilling. So this will continue to be the key focus as the economy recovers.
Vaccinations and the reopening, now that goes hand in hand. An improving situation may bolster confidence among households and businesses and perhaps provide an opportunity to widen the revenue base, which the Finance Ministry is currently studying. What would be the conditions to introduce taxes like the GST?
Yeah. Well, the revenue base, as you have mentioned, one of the opportunities is to relook at the consumption tax. It could be GST or it could be any other form of tax. The government, through Ministry of Finance, is doing a study on this. But in terms of timing, we have decided that this is not the right time to introduce any new form of taxation, given that we are still on our economic recovery phase, right? But after the economy has recovered, we really need to relook at widening our revenue base, which also includes the possibility of reintroducing consumption tax.
Now, moratorium was also placed on loans, banks subsequently seeing lower credit costs. Is there enough liquidity and capital buffers in position?
Yeah. There is, we at Ministry of Finance, together with the Central Bank, have been watching this closely. As you have seen, we've moved away from a blanket moratorium for all sectors and all individuals, and to more targeted approach. So that have helped us look at making sure that our banks remain healthy. And today, I'm pleased to say that the latest report shows that the banks have enough capital buffers and are showing quite strong performance as well in terms of their results that have been announced the last 2 weeks.
Now, Zafrul, the merger of development finance institutions, that was approved late last year. Nazir Raza, potentially in the running to serve as chairman of Bank Pembangunan. What role will Dfis play in the recovery in Malaysia?
DFI continues to play an important role. If you look at the last 5 stimulus packages that we have announced, we have leverage of the strength of our development banks, the Development Bank Pembangunan, Bank Exim Bank, our SME Bank, to assist those that have been affected. So it will continue to be a focus of the government to leverage and utilize the development banks in helping the industry. For in terms of consolidation, this is not something new. It was earlier announced in the previous budget, Budget 2020, on studying the possibility of merging the DFIs, the Development Financial Institutions. So today, the government continues to do that study, right? The new focus will be basically to do it in stages, to understand the landscape, and to also make sure that the actual mandate of all the development financial institutions are clear and objectives are met.
Now, as part of efforts to digitize the economy and connect more of the population, 5G rollout is targeted for the 4th quarter of this year, and SPV has been established to that purpose. What's the progress on getting bids from the private sector for developing this 5G infrastructure?
Thank you. Sophie, as you know, 5G is the next generation telecom infrastructure. It's seen as a critical asset by all industry players and countries globally. So Malaysia as well is focusing on this, as we have just launched our digital plan by the Prime Minister about a month ago. So the focus today is we have just set it up about a month ago now, and we are going through a process. In fact, the board is meeting today. We are going through a process to ensure that we have all the right governance in place before we start the bidding process to build the infrastructure. We will be at an open tender that will start soon, where we will then choose the right partner to build the 5G infrastructure for the country.
Now, infrastructure spending on rail also will be key. Projects like the MCR3, ECRL. What's the potential price tags on these projects and plans to finance them?
ECRL is ongoing, Sophie. I'm pleased to report here that ECRL is about 20% ahead of schedule, so it's moving along well. MRT3, it's still being studied. That's a big project amounting to close to 50 billion ringgit. That's our circle line. The study is probably complete by end of the year before we start, probably next year. And there's a lot of other ongoing infrastructure projects that has been announced in the budget. But the key big ones, it will be, if it happens after the study is completed, is the MRT3, which is the circle line, and the completion of ECRL.
Now, when it comes to digital banking, that is picking up pace within Asia. What is the Finance Ministry's position on providing support for that ecosystem? Should that strengthen that impetus in Malaysia?
We are very supportive. The government is very supportive, the Ministry of Finance especially, and we're working closely with the Central Bank. The Central Bank has just recently issued guidelines on digital banks. They are inviting potential applicants to apply for digital bank. Timeline-wise, I think they've given until end of June to submit their application to those who are interested to have a license, a digital bank license in Malaysia. And after that, the Central Bank will probably take 6 months at least to assess and before recommending to the Ministry of Finance on who or which companies should take. We have, so far, I must say that there have been keen interest, both domestically and from international players. And it's something that we feel that it's good to have, and we will be very much supporting this digital bank agenda.
Now, turning to markets, the KLCI down about 2% year to date, but we are seeing foreign funds flow back this month. That could narrow that year-to-date loss for the KLCI. What is your sense of the sentiment, this turnaround that we're seeing in attitudes from foreign investors to Malaysian equities?
Sophie, you're right. In the month of March, if I'm not mistaken, about 180 million net inflow from foreign investors that came into Malaysia after 20 consecutive months of decline in investments from the indicating of outflow, international outflow. So to us, that's positive. We've seen the strengthening of our currency. We've seen the strengthening of our bond markets. And so now we see the strengthening of our equity markets. I think this is in line with the projected economic growth that we are looking at, and of course the strengthening of. You mentioned about oil price, commodity prices have also improved. This has helped Malaysia, but more importantly, also in our trade numbers have also showed very strong numbers. We have a current account surplus close to 60 billion ringgit already. So all these factors have helped gain interest in our equity markets.
Is there any possibility of bringing back the capital gains tax on stocks?
No possibility.
And should Petronas be listed, in your opinion, or other big corporate players?
When I was an investment bank CEO, I must say I will agree with you, it should be listed. But on a serious note, it is. If you look at the financial strength of Petronas today, they are able to raise capital in the bond markets at a relatively competitive cost. And as you know, their ratings are similar to the sovereign. So I don't see any need for Petronas itself to be listed, given that they have ability to tap into the markets. But more importantly, if you look at the subsidiaries, they are all listed: Petronas Dagangan, Petronas Gas, MISC. The large subsidiaries within Petronas are all listed companies. So they are also, even their own companies are able to raise money both in the capital markets.
And Zafrul, very quickly, just got to check in on 1MDB developments. What's the progress on reaching settlements with more parties?
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for that question, Sophie. Well, on 1MDB, in the last 1.5 months, we've announced two more settlements, right? One with Deloitte, amounting to $80 million, and most recently also with our local bank, M-Bank, that's close to 2.83 billion ringgit. We are still in discussion with other professional entities, other auditors and legal firms to seek some funds, to seek recovery for 1MDB. So that's still ongoing, and of course, there's also ongoing discussions with the Middle East.